In management, there are the process we call as recruiting,
employing,
developing an appraisal,
and dismissing. The question is, are you all ready to learn?
Learn with us.
Learn.
And develop your inner managerial skills.
Develop. We are the Group 5, reporting and ready to develop learning. Vamos, compañeros.
Excuse me, ma'am. I read this hiring application. Can I apply?
Do you actually know this recruiting is all about?
I actually don't know, ma'am. Can you elaborate on it for me?
Sure. Take a seat and I will discuss it further for you.
A pleasant day to everyone. I'm going to discuss what this recruiting is all about. So, recruiting is a very common word for us. It is a process of finding, screening, hiring a suitable candidate for the job. So why do we need hiring and recruiting? So, in many respects, treating people like other resource is a smart option. We should choose the finest candidate for the job at hand to maintain, upgrade, and modify the resource like we would construct a piece of machinery to make sure it serves our purpose. In recruiting, we have recruitment of staffs that has 6 standard elements in the recruitment process. The job description, the personal profile, attracting suitable candidates, the application form, references, and lastly, the interview. So first is the job description. Job description is simply vacancy equals the opportunity to rethink roles. It is a plain language tool that describes duties, tasks, function, and responsibilities of a position. And traditionally, the job description will contain, first, job title. It is a name that describes a person's job in an organization. For example, I am a social studies teacher. And second is the brief description for the purpose of the job. It describes the workforce of the skills, talents, knowledge, and other performance that needs to qualify. For example, kanang makita na to sa CNU page, like we are recruiting to fill the vacancy of an English teacher. So if you know that you are graduate from BSAID major in English, you have the skills and knowledge to apply for that certain position. Third one is the reporting relationship. A technical person may report directly to their direct manager or project manager if they are involved in another department in same capacity. The fourth one is the job responsibility. It conveys the complexity, scope, and level of responsibility of a job. For example, you are the janitor of the CNU school. Your responsibility is to maintain the cleanliness of the school. So the fifth one is the competencies, abilities, and attitude. As opposed to the qualifications, mao na yan dapat i-possess sa mga applicants. And lastly is the criteria for the effectiveness. It is the most helpful element of both the candidate and the person or committee that is in charge for that decision. It is usually a question of how the job will be assessed. Ari na ito mahibawaan kung unsa jud ang main objectives of na fulfill ba siya. So we're done with the job description. The second stage of the recruitment of staff is the personal profile. Beginning with the job description, the following stage is to establish the qualities of a type of individual that can match the requirements. So, the personal profile can be a resume or a curriculum vitae. Certain of these attributes will be vital and others will be desirable. So we have a handy checklist, which is the personal characteristics, achievement and experiences, ari ang mga degrees, special project nimo, and mga awards. Next is the competencies, abilities, aptitudes, skills, knowledge, and effective applications. Sunod kay ang motivation. Ari ni may butang imong ambition o unsay imong direction. And lastly is the personality. Na ba kay leadership, nindot ba kag relationship sa imong mga katrabaho, and na ba kay emotional stability. While the first two categories are obvious factual, the latter three contains judgment components. Some of the characteristics will be or should be determined by the search of an approach that complements those of other team members. Meaning ani kay ang team member na mo decide or mo determine if mao ba ang imong gisuwat sa imuhang resume. Note that personal profile can be a resume or curriculum vitae. So what is the difference of these two? Ang resume kay can limited only 1 or 2 pages, wherein curriculum vitae can be longer. Nya, resume is used for job hunting in all industries, while ang curriculum vitae kay is used for jobs admissions in academia. Resume is tailored to the specific job you're applying to, whereas ang curriculum vitae is comprehensive overview or history of your academic credentials. And the third stage of requirement of staff is the attracting suitable candidates. In this ever-changing world, the requirement to recruit the correct number of qualified individuals stays constant. Ideally, magkuha ta og 20 kabog applicants forms, pero magkuha tag 5 kabog for interview. We may boost or decrease the amount of applications we get in a variety of ways. So first is tighten or slacken the essential and desirable characteristic in the personal profile and advertise accordingly. And second is limit or extend our choice of advertising media. And the third one is target groups other than existing teachers, redundant teachers, or newly qualified teachers. And lastly is build the image of the school as an attractive place in which to teach or to offer or make known for fringe benefits. Adjusting personal profile. We do, however, want them to be tight enough to filter out unsuitable applicants, especially in the buyer's market. Tightening the personal profile is a very effective means of limiting applications since it reduces the quantity while focusing on the quality requirements. Of course, the personal profile will serve as the foundations for the job posting. The use of advertising media. The use of advertising media is to raise and decrease the amount of number of applicants for a position, as it offers the benefits of boosting the power of advertising if the initial effort does not produce enough candidates. So it means if imong traditional way of kanang recruitment does not, wala nila nakuha ang quota sa pila kabog applicants silang ganahan, ano sila mo use og using media as a advertising media. Targeting non-conventional staff. The school principal can only broaden the scope of choice and thus increase the chances of recruiting better staff by looking beyond the traditional groups. Mauna sila katong na mga experience like provisional existing teachers, unemployed teachers, and married woman returners. Nya, instead of atong i-diminish ilang quality, ato sa ikuan kung nganong naa naman sila yung experience, nganong dili na lang nato sila i-hire. So, other groups that deserves particular consideration include early retires of all kinds, industrial managers, especially who have worked in the training on personal functions, local authority officers, parents who have no previous teaching experience but who have relevant competencies, and lastly, social workers. Building an image of the school as an attractive place in which to teach. One head in a notoriously tough recruitment location claims that he never has any difficulty since workers are queuing up to come to his school. A portion of its appeal can be ascribed to a general quality image. Like, for example, ang mga newly graduate ng mga teachers, like, ganahan sila mo adto manarbaho that certain school kay it is popular, and not only popular but it has a good image and quality education.
Application forms. Most educational institutions have a standard form. and most of these forms are actually constructed to factual information. In reading application forms, we should remember that the most relevant data are often that are missing. Of course, we should compare each form to the essential and desirable criterion in our profile. And if important actually does exist, this means that any application that do not comply will be rejected. Others may be rejected if they do not fulfill enough of our desirable criteria. So, ang application form is mo na yung fill upan sa mga applicants. And of course, they're going to fill up the necessary information like name, address, age, and gender, like sort of. And then, of course, they're going to fill up as well what position in the company they are aiming for or aiming to. References. As previously stated, the references method should have been included in the application form. Subject to a request to the contrary, it is customary in the teaching profession to collect references for the shortlist prior to the interview. Unlike testimonial, a reference is a secret and legally binding document. Many reviewers will be hesitant to publicly refer to the candidate's shortcomings in writing since the document is privileged. So, usually, ang references is about people nga imong nailhan. It could be your co-workers before na whom you trust or like you have a good relationship with. It could be a client if you have a business. Or it could be a professor or a teacher when you're still studying. And as long as you're going to like ask their permission if you're going to put their necessary information like of course their names and their address, age, telephone number, or email address. Planning the interview. Purpose of the interview is to determine which of the selected people meets our request the best. Certain of these criteria will be biographical or factual. Others will be behavioral or judgment. And the majority will be combination of the two. For example, we may be able to judge a person's drive by delving deeply into the outcomes of some project he or she undertaken, inquiring about the problem that arose and whether and how they were dealt with and by whom. It is especially crucial to consider the kind of information and interview responses that will assist us in reaching a relevant conclusion and the behavioral or judgmental criterion. The whole process is greatly helped if we prepare for each candidate a selection sheet. The use and retention of such sheets can be valuable if any candidates alleges discrimination, like racism, it could be sexual or other grounds. So it is important that the interviewer must be prepared with appropriate questions, of course. So majority of the questions deals with situational, like how you're going to handle the problem in your desired position. Or it could be how you're going to resolve this. In planning interview, it is relevant if you're going to test the applicant's willingness, like interviewing them through the phone, to test if they are serious about the job they are applying in or if abtik pud ba sila sa ilang work. The interview. A formal panel conducts educational interviews which may be preceded by a tour of the establishment and informal preliminary meeting or series of meetings with the individuals with whom the successful candidate will have to work most closely, as well as teaching a lesson or performing other tasks. Other informal preliminaries should be encouraged, since they assist the candidate in deciding whether or not to accept the position, while also offering potential behavioral input to the school's side the selection procedure. Schools are increasingly following industry's lead in employee attitude assessment. So the interview is, of course, we all know that interview is the crucial part, as it tests quick and concise explanation of the applicant. Especially educational interview requires articulate answers, which the panel are keen to details. So as you can see in the screens, this is the example of selection sheets. So an interview, there's also do's and don'ts. So don'ts focuses on the things that should be prevented or avoided. Those focuses on both the freedom and responsibility of the interviewer and the applicant. Confirming the appointment. Every employee must by law be given a written statement of terms and conditions of employment. This statement must be cover a number of specific points, including salary, periods of notice, holiday entitlement, and grievance procedure. It is good practice to incorporate this into a written offer to the chosen candidate. So if you're hired, the institution will give you the statement of terms and conditions, or like, yes, the terms and conditions to follow, or this terms and conditions contains the standards, policies, and rules that you need to abide or to follow. Induction. Induction, as soon as candidates have accepted the appointment, they should be sent a copy of the development document or schemes of work, departmental responsibilities, etc. Invited for induction day and given the job description. A collection of knowledge, textbooks, school rules, standard forms, etc. should be given to the new worker, as well as guided tour and meeting planned. Form room, locker space, pass key, and other physical aspects should be negotiated. It is helpful to create induction checklist for each school. Ideally, the induction day will be begin and end with the recruit's immediate manager, who will also serve as the point of contact for any queries. So, induction training is an opportunity for organization to welcome the new recruit, help them settle and ensure they have the knowledge and support they needed to perform their role.
So do you know what is it now?
Yes, Mom. Thank you for explaining it to me.
Well, of course, you'll get through it. So let me first rewrite the job description.
Let me define what is employing all about.
So after recruiting, what comes next? Of course, comes next is employing. When we say employing, what words can you associate it with? Let us know by typing your answers in the chat box. It is a sign for us to know whether you're present or not. Okay, so continuing. Employing. Let me define it first. When we say employing, it refers to the process of hiring individuals involving their respective roles and responsibilities. And of course, in exchange for their service comes compensation. Of course, wa man jud ganahang mo trabaho if dili soldado, di ba? Of course, dili lang jud na siya sweldo pod. Kay kung moingon tag compensation, it involves having insurances, napag ibang company nga mo offer sila og free house and lot sa ilang mga kanang nagtrabaho. So that are just example of compensation. So, some of you might ask, what's the purpose of employing staff? Why do we need to employ staff? So here's a very quick answer. So the purpose of employing is, it is a way of ensuring that the organization will be running well by hiring the best people to work for the job. So of course, kailangan mamili jud ka og pinakatarong, pinaka-best, pinakamaayo, para pod ang imong organization nga gihold mo work well jud siya. So that's just the plain purpose of employing staff. And of course, when you employ staff, it doesn't just stop there. There is a responsibility that is involved with it. So of course, as an employer, you should not be emotional. You should not be like that. You should always anchor your decisions and your actions according to the legislation and the rules and policies set by the company or the organization you are in. What helps you in employing staff and what hinders? As an employer, here are the tips or the strategies that would help or hinder in employing staff. So these are the things that would help in employing staff. And these are the things that would hinder in employing staff. Those are the things that would help or hinder you in employing staff. Of course, it's very basic, no? When we say help, let's just be professional. Let's always have a stipulated action and decision. That's the very basic. If you give out policies or rules, then that's it. There's no point of revoking it, changing it repeatedly. It's just stick to the decision. And of course, if you're the employer, you should be always aware of what is going on, aware of what is happening inside your organization or your company. And then, unhindering, of course, when we insert our emotions, our personal grudges, or having everything unplanned, then that would hinder. Employing comes with this responsibility. So how can we ensure that our employees are receiving adequate compensation, rights, and of course, their safety? Because if the employees are not in the good hands, then the organization will also not do good. Same with the school setup and the school administration. If the employees within the school premises are not doing well, they're not feeling well, they don't have enough to do their job, then the organization will be dysfunctional. So here are what entails employing staff. We have first is staff protection. So when we say staff protection, this refers to ensuring that the employees get a safe environment to work in, that they are protected not only in their environment but also physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. Maternity, paternity, and adoptive rights. So as an employer, you should not limit your employee from performing their personal duties outside of work. So, imong employee, buntis or amahan, or ganahan siya mo adapt og bata, iyan ang right, iyan ang karapatan na manganak. If sa maternity ni siya nga part, alangan naman lang po dog nanganak imong trabahante, patrabahoon mo largo nga naam na siya physical effect, nga pwede mo na siyang mabughat, which later would also cost you bigger problem. So mas better mo ang musunod na lang jud kaning maternity, paternity, and adoptive rights, especially it is anchored in the law, it is signed by the legislation. So we have here in the Philippines the RA number 11210, section 6, the allocation of maternity leave credits. Explained in RA 11210, section 6, allocation of maternity leave credits, explains that most employees of yours na nag-maternity leave should receive a 105-day expanded maternity leave with paid. So, dapat bayaran jud sila, no? This goes to private and also the government sector. So, sa paternity leave naman po, same goes with it. You working hours directive or the 48 hours. Wait. EU Working Hours Directive 48 hours week.
Disability
Entailed with this
Discrimination
is the directive that lays down provisions
employers
for a
have the
maximum
duty and
48-hour
responsibility
working
to
week,
make reasonable
including
adjustments to
overtime,
employment and
rest
working
periods
conditions
and breaks,
for their
and a
disabled
minimum of
workers
4 weeks paid
in
leave
order for them to not
per
receive
year
less favorable
to
treatment
protect
among
workers
the others.
from adverse
Discrimination
health
of
and
any
safety
kind
risks.
should
And
be
in connection to
disregarded
this
and challenged.
comes
As if, for example, you have an
the
employee
workload
who is
agreement,
physically
which
disabled.
is going to be
And then,
discussed later on.
He is mocked by his workmates. How are you going to address that? Example, kana siya nga scenario. So if ikaw ang employer, imo dyan na ipang-call out. That's the first thing you should do. Call them out. Kung kinsa tong ni mock, ni discriminate, nag-joke, nang insulto, i-call out. Call them out. Tell them to act appropriately, knowing that it's a corporate. Okay? It's a corporate place. It's a corporation. It's an organizational place. It's a space of growth. It shouldn't be a space of discrimination. So we call them out. Then second, on the part of that employee, nimo nga, ay disability, you should also not give him work or task nga di niya ma-handle, without of course compromising the performance and the credibility of your organization. So for example, if kanang maayo siya mo suwat, so imo siya pasuwaton, maayo siya mo buhat og mga reports, then let him do it. But do not give him those jobs, na example, pasuwaton nimo or kanang imo siyang tambakan og trabaho nga di niya makaya, because that would compromise you and the performance of your organization. So it's simply giving a safe space for work and an inclusive space wherein everyone can grow and foster. Employment tribunals. So when we say employment tribunals, this deals with hearings between workers and employers to resolve conflict and employment rights. So let us take note of the word hearings. So in the Philippines, we have DOLE.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, is a government department in the Philippines responsible for the promotion of the social and economic welfare of workers, regulating labor and employment conditions, and protecting workers' rights.
Dispute resolution in the workplace. This refers to solving errors and problems inside the workplace. With this comes the written disciplinary and grievances procedures that should be known to the staff. They may also refer to the contracts for this one. Also, I would like to include the rules and regulations that they must abide in the workplace. Fixed-term employees. Any staff or employee with a fixed-term contract. So, they are the employees that fill the job that is vacant for the meantime. So, best example, ano kay, if kana ganing maestra ninyo, kay mga anak, so, mag-maternity leave man dyan na, diba? And, dili dyan na mabakante ang iyang position. Dadyo mo sab ana nga teacher from other school or a newbie. So, this is an example of fixed-term employees. But let us take note that the fixed-term employees should receive the same amount of compensation and rights to the permanent one. They must not be treated less favorable compared to those employees who are regular. Because at the end of all the statement, they are also employees, they're under your jurisdiction, they're under you, and as an employer, you should provide equal opportunity, equal compensation, and equal rights to those fixed employees.
Public Interest Disclosure Act, 1999. It is the duty of all staff to take action if they think they have grounds for suspecting colleagues of fraud, corruption, malpractice, abuse, harassment, discrimination, or legal or health and safety non-compliance. There need to be open channels of communication with management for dealing with such concerns, and a whistleblowing policy and procedure communicated to staff.
Pending legislation. Watch out for new pending legislation. Examples on religious, age, sexual orientation, pension, consultation, temporary employees, and of course, dignity at work.
A lot of legislators are still working on what they should improve on their law. They're also creating some amendments and crafting new resolutions that would aid employees and also the employers. The Workload Agreement. In January 2003, the DFAS and the Welsh Assembly announced that they had reached agreement with the teachers' union and those representing support staff on implementing a program which will reduce teacher workload. The intention is to phase in changes to the teacher contract and to employ support staff in greater numbers and in extended roles. A major change is the inclusion in the conditions of service requiring heads to ensure that teachers have a reasonable work-life balance. Teachers will, over time, no longer be required to undertake mainly routine tasks such as bulk photocopying, collecting money, and minuting meetings. The agreement emphasizes the need to raise standards by allowing teachers to concentrate on the core task of teaching and learning.
Of course, I would also like to add developing. So developing staff is all about.
Okay, so after employing comes developing staff. When we say developing staff, atong keyword dyan diri is enhancements. So, developing staff is enhancing the skills, knowledge, and abilities of your employees. So with this, as the enhancement comes in, it creates a workforce that is adaptive, responsive, and more capable because of the new set of knowledges and skills they have acquired. And in result, it will make your organization or your company more efficient and more stronger in terms of working. How can this be achieved? Unsa day pamaagi nga makuha na to ang developing staffs? Unsa na to pagpa-enhance, no? So, there are varied type of development needs. It varies according to the individual needs, the group needs, and the organization needs. Pero flashed on your screen, muna siya ang kanang figure on what is individual needs, group needs, and organization needs. So, I think makabasa raman mong tanan, so basaha lang jud.
And of course, say hi to the camera, Carlo, and tell us what is appraising all about.
Hi, people of the earth and the universe. What is appraising all about? Sounds intriguing, right? Well, here it is.
What is performance appraisal? Do you have any idea what is performance appraisal? Performance appraisal is a process of evaluating and documenting how well an employee is carrying out his or her job. The keywords there are evaluating and documenting, meaning to say you assess, record, and observe the performance of a person. Performance appraisal is a part of company's performance management system because performance appraisal will help to improve the company and enhance the employees. Performance appraisals are based on the employee's progress against goals set once a year with his or her manager. According to Barber et al. 1995, the appraisal has been successful in identifying staff development needs and targeting resources, leading to improved school management and a positive climate. Performance management is or should be an opportunity for individual to meet with his or her manager to take stock of their individual and joint achievements. The manager and employee must interact to discuss what are the things needed to improve and what are the concerns of the employee. As a result of their discussion, there should be an agreement on the action needed to improve. What are they? First is improve the performance of individual. For example, to improve your performance, you need to focus on your strengths, focus on a positive feedback, and set your goals. The second is Improve working relationships. One of the example to improve the relationship is socializing with your coworkers, not only with your coworkers but also with your manager and communicating with them properly. The third or the last is develop the individual's career. Examples are undergoing training and experimenting with other skills. Well, develop performance management systems are considerable benefit to both the individual and the organization. And indeed, industrial staff will complain if their appraisal interview is overdue. At their best, such systems are highly motivational to employees since they enable them to measure their achievement, recognize their achievement, prepare them for advancement, open up opportunities for personal growth, and clear the air of the problems and build the relationship with their manager. And now, let's talk about essentials for effective appraisals. First is objectivity. The basis for a constructive discussion is a prior agreement on a criteria for effectiveness. As a manager, your objective must be SMART. S stands for specific, M measurable, A achievable, R realistic, and T is for time, so that you will achieve a certain goal. Second is willingness to listen. The manager's approach should not be to tell the staff member what is the right or wrong, but to ask for his or her views first. For example, if you are the manager of a company, then you notice that the profit of your company is decreasing because your employees lost interest. The best thing to do is set a meeting for your employees and ask them what are the problems, why they act like that, and what are their concerns, and learn to listen in order to solve a certain problem. Openness for criticism. Not just the subordinate but also the mature manager will listen very carefully to any criticism and use it as a basis for improvement. Since I always give an example of a manager, so now I will give an example in the school. You're about to join a press conference at your school. I know that we are all familiar with what is press con. To those who are not familiar with a press conference, is a competition for journalism for both private and public. If you join, of course you have a mentor to guide you and help you. Your mentor said that write about fake news. After you finish writing, so your mentor will read it and critique your work. Kung unsa man ay panulti sa imong mentor about your work, dili pa siya ganahan sa pagkasulat, so tagaan ka napud kag another topic. You should accept it and listen kung unsa ang iyang mga advice. Kay dili man na para niya, para man na nimo. So you need to use that as a motivation for you to win on that competition. The fourth is counseling, not judgment. What can we do to improve the situation or the results? Mag-base ta sa example na akong gihatag before. To improve your writing, your mentor provide different topics for you so that your writing skills will improve and your thoughts will organize properly. So those hard work should makadaog jud ka sa contest. Action planning. New objectives and development plans were carried forward, progressed, and reviewed systematically at the next review meeting. I will base sa example na akong gi-provide sa willingness to listen. If you already know the problems and the concerns of your employees, that is the time that you will make another objective or plan for you to address the concerns of your employees, and that will implement for the next meeting. Let's talk about the appraisal record. Headings for an effective appraisal record are as follows. First, development plan carried out over the last 12 months or since the last appraisal and results. Second, results achieved against job criteria and objectives. Third, notes on two. Fourth, particular strengths. Fifth, areas in which improvement could be made. Sixth, action needed by the individual, his or her manager, and others to achieve improvement. 7. Staff members' wishes for the future and action that will be taken to prepare him or her. And the last, objectives or targets it is of course essential that the development action are followed through. Let's go to meeting development needs. There are many ways of meeting development needs, and courses, if only because they are the most obvious, should be the last that we consider. Other methods are counseling, coaching, and consultancy, planned and reading, self-development, projects, change in responsibilities, sitting in on meetings, producing a research report, and lastly, visits. And now, let's talk about the re-entry problem. Individuals emerging from any development program in which they learn techniques, behaviors, or approaches new to themselves. The school are likely to feel some degree of frustration when they try to apply what they have been taught. The re-entry problem is particularly apparent after an intensive program away from the school. People feel uncomfortable if one of the norms in their environment appears to change. Unfortunately, this response may cause the returned trainee to doubt the validity of what he or she has learned, and the development effort will have been wasted. Entry problem will be eased if trainees are aware of it, bide their time a little, and make an effort to discuss their intended change with their team and involve them in helping to implement it. The second is the trainee's superior, who it is hope has been a key party to initiating the development, provides support and counseling on and after the entry. This guidance should be a natural consequence of a pre-event. Group training. Many of the re-entry problems are overcome if staff are trained in a groups or as a total team, thus creating a common understanding and a critical mass for implementing the learning. School managers should be viewing all their decisions in terms of investment and return. A diagrammatic comparison is given in Figure 6.4. So this is Figure 6.4. In service training, these provide a valuable opportunity to, first, introduce new concept to a critical mass of a staff. Second, work through cases and exercises to ensure active learning. And third, debate the concept and discuss their application. Fourth, make plans to implement. And lastly, plan to review implementation at a specified staff meeting or at the next in-service day. And lastly, let's talk about a coherent approach. Recruitment and appraisal and training are three activities which should not be seen in isolation from each other, but as a part of a comprehensive approach to developing a proficient, well-motivated and effective staff. The key to a good school, staff recruitment and development should be largely determined by the values, objectives, and curriculum development plans of the school. The means of translating school objective into individual staff responsibilities are job description, and the techniques of obtaining and developing staff to fulfill the job description effectively are those of selection and appraisal, followed up by the development action including training. The procedures advocated in this chapter are not easy to introduce into those schools where they do not already exist, for reasons which include: first, resistance to ideas which appear to come from America and industry and are ipso facto repugnant to the professional world of education, which is different. Second, fear of being labeled incompetent. Third, dislike of paperwork. Fourth, discomfort at the idea that learning acquired at university may not be sufficient for a modern teacher. Fifth, a feeling that a teacher are by their nature people who have an instinct for choosing and developing staff. Sixth, professional performance should be above judgment. And lastly, a feeling perhaps caught from pupils that training and learning are unpleasant things associated with children rather than mature adults. Progressive schools will have noted these national trends and will be building appraisal and development firmly into their management systems. Finally, it should not be forgotten that a comprehensive approach should include administrative and ancillary staff as well as the teachers. Though the recalcitrance of some school keepers can be attributed in a part to local union stances, it should never be forgotten that a show of a strength is a fairly normal reaction to being underestimated or taken for granted. That's all about appraising. Hopefully, you learned something with me.
Dismissing staff, kung sa Tagalog pa, pagpapaalis ng mga tauhan. Well, dismissal is the termination of employment by an employer against the will of the employee. Do you know that it is also called firing? Are you familiar with this line, "You are fired"?
You're fired again? You're fired, Carlo. You're fired, Christy. I don't want to see your faces again in my office. Get out! Just get out!
But Mom, we haven't received any separation pay or any notice. Why would you dismiss us all of a sudden?
I don't care, I don't care. I don't care. Just get...
Before you dismiss your staff, you need to know this fact first.
The legal position Employment Protection Consolidation Act 1978 is a UK law that consolidated a number of previous acts related to employment protection into a single piece of legislation. The act was designed to provide a greater protection for employees in terms of their employment rights. But in the Philippines, the Employment Protection Consolidation Act is not applicable. However, the Philippines has its own laws related to employment protection. The Labor Code of the Philippines, or the Presidential Decree number 442, is a primary law governing the employment and labor relations. The Labor Code provides various protections and benefits for the employees, including but not limited to security of tenure, right to self-organization, minimum wage, overtime pay, leave benefits, and social security and health insurance. So as you can see, the both aforementioned law aims to protect the employees. Aside from the Labor Code of the Philippines or the Presidential Decree number 442, the Magna Carta for Women or the RA 9710 also protects employees, especially women, in the workplace. But going back to Employment Protection Consolidation Act 1978, if the employer can provide that their employees has acted one of the following reasons, then the employer has the right to dismiss their staff without problem, and the employees is no longer protected with the Employment Protection Consolidation Act. But what are these reasons in order for the employer to dismiss their staff without a problem? Stay tuned and don't sleep, because that will be discussed next.
The decision to dismiss. If the school is contemplating for the dismissal of any member of staff, the head of the school or the one who stands as employer should be clear whether the reason for dismissal is misconduct, incapability, or redundancy. So for us to deeply understand the reasons mentioned above, let's take a look on the next slide. The first reason is misconduct. Misconduct that the employee has been warned or has committed an act of gross misconduct. An example for this is poor timekeeping. For example, you are a security guard in a school and you're always late. And it happens that mas mauna ang estudyante ug kaabot sa school than you nga security guard. So the head of the school warned you or reminds you to be on time, but still, kanunay ra gyapon kang malate. So the continuing misconduct could lead or could result to dismissal. Okay? So as a future educator, let's practice nga karon pa lang we are on time. Kay in the future, kung mahimo na tao ka ng teacher nga manarbaho ta, nya kanunay ra tang malate, So still it end up nga ma-dismiss ra gyapon ta sa atong trabaho tungod sa misconduct. So it is mentioned earlier about the gross misconduct. What is gross misconduct? No? So, well, in this case, kanang grabe na bitaw siya, like kawat or discriminatory behavior. Let's move on to incapability. When we say incapability, the employee is unable to carry out the duties required of them to the expected standard. So there are two reasons of dismissal in the ground of incapability, like ill health or poor performance. Okay, ill health like cancer. If the staff, a teacher, or janitor has a cancer, it is difficult for her to do her job, right? So when we say poor performance, there's always a room for improvement man, di ba? But the question is, matanggal pa ba gihapon ko nga there's room for improvement pa man? Well, if the employer cites incapability as the reason for dismissal, they need to show that they have given the employee an opportunity to improve their performance, like seminars, orientations, and trainings. So then, if gihatagan na kaana nga kanang room for improvement, then they see nga wala gihapoy improvement, poor performance gihapon ka, then it could be a reason nga ma-dismiss ka. So that's incapability. Now let's go with redundancy. The particular employee has been chosen for redundancy in accordance with established criteria. Example, you need nga magtanggal ka og staff or like janitor kay wala na kay kakasweldo, or that role is no longer required. Well, the criteria for that may be performance, but unfortunately, last in, first out may have been established. So, to determine the criteria when selecting staff for redundancy, the principle to be applied is achieving a balance between the needs of the school and the need to be fair in dealing with staff. So, it is always, it's always the job that make redundant, not the person. Okay, so again, as the head of the school, in dismissing a staff, you need to follow the formal procedure. Okay, so now let's put ourselves now. What if ikaw to ang nastoryahan or ikaw ang staff na i-dismiss? Of course, maybe some of us can feel anger, sadness, maghilak, or mag-uol, or ang uban speechless, di ka storya sa ilang emotions inside. Or there are a lot of things nga nagdagan silang hunahuna, like kung unsaon na lang akong pamilya ani, unsa ako ipakaon, and all. Well, those are normal reactions after hearing staff's dismissal, right? So allow me to share guidelines to help the deliverer of the message prepared to deal with them. Okay? First is choose a time and place. Second, work out and write down the details. Third, summon the person to the appointment at short notice. Fourth, we have the tone of interview. Fifth, we have don't torture the victim by beating around the bush. Sixth, responses may be silence. Seventh, at an appropriate moment, explain the details written. Eighth, we have conclude the interview by offering an opportunity. Ninth, we have make sure that you are available to help. Well, All in all, the guideline says that the time and place are very important so that there will be no interruptions. In terms of time, no one should be in a hurry. And in place, it's better if it's calm and peaceful. There is a privacy between the employer and the employee. Okay, the tone of the interview should be conducted formally. Kanang walay daghang storya, and come to the point as quickly, simply, firmly as possible. The responses from the staff could be silence, no? Kay deep inside there's a thought nga, nganong ako, no? Nganong ako, unsa na akong pamilya, right? So napay uban maghilak and maghinuktok and more. Well, again, those are normal reactions. Okay. After that, give an appropriate moment in explaining the details like kanus ang exact date, ang payments, and daghang papel nga mga permahan. No? So, ato jud bana-banaon nga nagka-storya nato, it's appropriate ba? It's an appropriate moment kung kanus nato sila papirmahon. Like, di kay naghilak na, pretty hilak sa dismiss ng staff din. Mana ka, oops, itigil mo yan, permahisan ni. No, it should be not like that. Well, after all, sa mahuman nakag-interview, try to do something that could help the staff nga magaan iyang gibati or nga muuli sa ilahab nga kanang dili sakit or kanang there's a comfort inside, no? So as the head, let's try to do something that could comfort them before leaving the room.
Effecting the dismissal refers to the procedure you need to do when you consider dismissing a staff, particularly in a situation where your staff is employed in an organization such as school or public institution. The governing body must give the employee who is being considered for dismissal the opportunity to present their case, or make any necessary representations to a committee that has been convened to consider the dismissal. This may include the opportunity to speak orally if they request it. Additionally, the member of staff has the right to have a friend or trade union representative to accompany them during the process, which can provide them with support and guidance. If the member of the staff is dismissed, they have the right to appeal to the decision to an appeal committee. And the appeal committee must be composed of governors who are no part of the original process, so that the decision would be clean and fair to everyone.
Picking up the pieces. Consider the effect of a dismissal on the rest of the school staff so that you can manage the fallout. Bad news travels so fast. Remember, daghan ang mga marites, napunan o kuhaan ang mga storya. So people will wonder, who is next? Okay, so your task is to restore morale as soon as possible. Let the anger play itself out, but as soon as you can, move people towards getting on with life. You need to fill the gap caused by the dismissal by the arrival of the new recruit that provides an opportunity to take the existing roles and responsibilities. The positive leadership that you offer in the school during its adversities will help to dissolve the negative feelings. This is what the school will look for you.
Okay, I see. It's not really good to dismiss staff immediately. I would like to say sorry, Ariane, Steve, and Carlo for doing that. I was just driven by my emotions, so it's never right to dismiss staff. Thank you.
Yes, always remember what we have said.
We are the Group 5.
With 6 members?
With 5 topics.
Recruiting,
Employing and developing.
appraising,
and dismissing.
Leaving with one quote.
You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality.